Hello friends and welcome back. If you're someone who loves horror, suspense, and a good mystery that keeps you guessing from start to finish, then today's video is just for you. And if you've ever found yourself terrified by creepy animatronics, haunted locations, or dark secrets hidden in abandoned buildings, get ready, because Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is bringing all of that and more, straight to your screen. If you're planning to watch this movie in English and want to experience the full thrill of it, don't forget to like this video. And if this is your first time visiting our channel, I want to give you a big warm welcome. We talk about movies, shows, reviews, behind-the-scenes content, and everything in between. So hit that subscribe button right now and join our movie-loving family. You won't regret it. In today's video, we're going to talk all about Five Nights at Freddy's 2, one of the most talked about horror films of the year 2025. This is the much-awaited sequel to the first FNAF movie, and fans of the game series and the horror genre alike have been counting down the days for its release. In this video, I'll tell you exactly what this movie is about, how it connects to the first film, and what kind of new twists and terrifying turns you can expect this time around. We'll also go over where and how you can watch it, whether it's releasing in theaters, on an OTT platform like Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, or any other service, or if it's going to be aired on a satellite TV channel. I'll give you all the up-to-date information so you don't miss a single detail. Whether you prefer streaming or the big screen experience, you'll know exactly where to look. But that's just the surface. We'll go deep into the making of this film. From its early pre-production stage to the actual filming process and then into post-production, we'll explore how this scary sequel came to life. What kind of challenges did the creators face this time? How did they design the animatronics? What new technology was used to enhance the visual effects? You'll get to know all the behind-the-scenes secrets. We'll also talk about the technical side of things: cinematography, lighting, editing, and sound design. These are the things that give a horror movie its true impact. The eerie sound effects, the sudden silences, the suspenseful music. It's all designed to give you chills, and I'll tell you exactly how that's done in this movie. The music score especially plays a big role in building tension, and we'll talk about who composed it and what kind of soundtrack you can expect. Of course, we can't talk about a big film like this without mentioning the budget. We'll take a close look at how much was spent on making Five Nights at Freddy's 2, how that compares to the first film, and what kind of box office performance it's expected to have. Will it break records like its predecessor? Or will it go even bigger? I'll share all the details we know so far. Then we'll move into the plot. Don't worry, I won't spoil anything major. I'll give you a short, spoiler-free summary of what the story is about, what themes it explores, and how it raises the stakes from the first movie. I'll also share my first impressions and a mini review of the story, including whether I think it lives up to the expectations set by fans and critics. After that, we'll look at the star cast. Who's returning from the first film? Are there any surprise appearances? Who are the new characters, and what roles do they play in the story? We'll break down each major character, how they fit into the plot, and how well the actors performed in bringing them to life. Whether it's the protagonist, the supporting characters, or the terrifying animatronic villains, you'll get the full lowdown. And for the fans who love digging deeper, we'll talk about some fun facts and trivia. Maybe you'll find out about an Easter egg hidden in a scene, or maybe there's a subtle reference to one of the original FNAF games. We'll explore all the cool little details that make this movie a treat for longtime fans of the franchise. So friends, I really recommend that you stick with us until the very end of the video. We have a lot to cover, and I promise you won't want to miss any part of it. Whether you're a die-hard fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, or just someone who loves horror movies with creepy settings and terrifying creatures, this video is for you. So grab your snacks, sit comfortably, turn down the lights if you're feeling brave, and let's step into the dark, mysterious, and downright frightening world of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Let's get started. Alright horror fans, let's dive headfirst into the dark, flickering, anxiety-fueled world of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Because this story? It doesn't walk a straight line. It doesn't guide you gently through a beginning, middle, and end. No, this story grabs your hand and pulls you down a corridor full of flickering lights, warped music boxes, and secrets that refuse to stay buried. If you thought you had the formula figured out after the first film, think again. This isn't just a sequel. It's a descent. The movie kicks off not with a dramatic bang, but with an eerie quiet. We open to a new location, but one that feels familiar. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, yes, but a version of it that's active, alive. It's not the dusty ruins we saw last time. Kids are laughing, birthday balloons are floating, and smiling parents are sipping sodas under blinking party lights. But right away, something feels off. There's a kind of unnatural cheerfulness to it all, like the building is trying too hard to be normal. Then, we meet our new protagonist. They're not a hero. Not a detective. Not even someone looking for answers. They're just a teenager looking for a part-time job. Night shift security guard. Simple stuff, right? Just check the cameras, lock a few doors, survive until morning. But almost immediately you can tell, this job is different. The building seems to respond to them. Lights flicker when they walk by. Arcade machines glitch when they pass. And the animatronics? They stare. Not constantly, not all at once. Just long enough to make you question whether you imagined it. Now here's where things get really interesting. The movie plays with time, perspective, and reality in a way that keeps you constantly guessing. It doesn't follow a clean timeline. Instead of a traditional act structure, the story is split into nights, much like the original game, and each night is its own escalating nightmare. But these aren't just standard horror nights. They feel more like fragmented memories. Each night, the protagonist starts seeing and hearing things that don't make sense. Whispers in the vents, kids' laughter when the building is empty, flickering images on the camera of rooms that shouldn't exist. And in between the horror, the movie teases out a mystery. A deeper story. A history of the building that goes back further than anyone's told. There are old training tapes from the 1980s, designed for employees, that start off cheerful and cheery but slowly grow darker. Strange notes are found hidden behind walls. And then there's the puppet. Oh yes, the puppet. It doesn't follow the others. It moves in ways that don't match the rules. It appears in rooms it shouldn't. It watches from the dark with what looks like sadness, or maybe regret. It's never clear whether it's protecting the protagonist or pushing them towards something far more terrifying. The emotional core of the story builds as the main character realizes they're not just facing haunted machines. They're peeling back the layers of a tragedy. Missing children. Covered-up incidents. A cycle of violence that was never stopped. Just hidden. The closer they get to the truth, the more reality seems to twist. Hallways change. Cameras show footage from years ago. Mirrors reflect someone else's face. And time? Time bends. Sometimes the protagonist wakes up midnight shift without remembering how they got there. Sometimes they see themselves on the monitors, watching back. One of the most powerful turning points comes when they find the old office. The original security room from decades ago, sealed behind a false wall. Dusty. Untouched. But still warm, like someone just left. Inside are Polaroids, old security logs, and a final recording from someone who didn't make it out. That's when the protagonist realizes, they aren't the first. Not even close. And maybe they've been here before. What makes this story truly stand out is its refusal to spoon-feed you anything. It trusts you to piece the puzzle together. The horror is layered. Some scenes play out in silence, others are full of chaos. Sometimes you're in the present, other times you're suddenly thrust into a dream, or a memory, that bleeds into real life. It's disorienting, but in the best way, because that's exactly what the character is experiencing. You're right there with them, lost in a haunted maze where the walls shift and the clocks lie. And it's not just about being scared. There's emotional depth. A slow, creeping sorrow that hangs over the story like fog. You begin to realize this isn't just a haunted house movie. It's about trauma. Guilt. The past refusing to stay buried. It's about children who were forgotten. About mistakes covered up. And about a place that traps not just souls, but memories. The climax doesn't give you a clean resolution. Instead, it leans into the madness. The final night feels like a fever dream. The animatronics don't just chase. They talk. They repeat phrases that sound eerily personal. The walls of Freddy's twist in on themselves. The protagonist finds themselves face to face with a moment from their own past. One they didn't remember until now. And the final showdown? It's not a battle. It's a confrontation with the truth. The film ends in a way that leaves your brain buzzing. Did the character escape? Did they get trapped in the cycle? Was any of it real? Or are we watching a memory replaying over and over in some cursed loop? The final frame gives you just enough to think. And just enough to haunt you. So if you're looking for a simple haunted house flick with some cheap scares, this is not that movie. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is a psychological labyrinth disguised as a horror sequel. It lures you in with animatronic jump scares and birthday party lights, but then it pulls the floor out from under you. And by the time you realize what's really going on, you're already too deep to turn back. And that, friends, is the twisted beauty of its narrative. It doesn't follow rules. It rewrites them. And it dares you to try and keep up. Let's go even deeper into the character development of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 2025. Because honestly, this movie does something rare in the horror genre. It really lets its characters breathe, suffer, remember, and unravel. It doesn't just treat them like scream fodder. It treats them like pieces of a puzzle. Some broken, some dangerous, and some that don't even know they're missing until they try to fit in. Let's start with the protagonist again. Our night shift guard. They arrive at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza seemingly out of nowhere, just looking for a paycheck, a place to lie low, maybe to run from something. There's no dramatic reveal, no over-explained origin. But that's the beauty of it. From the first night, you can feel that this person isn't just here for the job. They're haunted, and not just by faulty lights and weird camera feeds. They walk into the building with a weight on their shoulders that you can't quite name, and as each night passes, that weight becomes harder to ignore. What makes their development so rich is the way the film refuses to make it obvious. We don't get flashbacks. We don't get some emotional confession scene. Instead, we get behavior, reactions, silence, fear that turns into obsession. You can see them slowly go from checking the monitors with casual interest to staring at them with intense fixation, like the answers are just barely out of frame. They stop acting like a guard and start acting like an investigator. No, a witness. They start following the strange sounds. They start reading the old notes tucked under the desk. They start remembering things they never meant to. And that's when it hits you. They might have a deeper connection to this place than even they know. The protagonist's transformation doesn't follow a clean arc. It's messy, uneven. One night they're brave, the next they're breaking down. There's a quiet, emotional decay happening. The kind that doesn't show up in screams, but in the way someone flinches when a child's laugh echoes through an empty hallway. The way they reach out to touch a dusty photo like it's familiar. By the end, you realize the scariest part for them isn't the animatronics. It's the truth they're slowly uncovering about themselves. Now let's talk about the real stars of the show, the animatronics. On the surface, they're nightmare fuel. Cold, mechanical, twitchy monsters. But the film does something bold. It treats them like survivors of a different kind. Each animatronic has a rhythm, a pattern, a way of interacting that feels strangely human. Freddy doesn't just move. He lurks. Chica doesn't just approach. She tests. Foxy doesn't just charge. He taunts. These aren't mindless machines. They have purpose, personality, and a disturbing sense of memory. They remember the hallways. They remember the screams. Maybe they even remember you. And then, of course, there's the puppet. Easily the most layered and emotional non-human character in the film. The puppet doesn't chase or attack like the others. It observes. It appears in moments that feel almost intimate. Moments of vulnerability, silence, realization. It often stands in the background, barely lit, head tilted like it's listening to the thoughts no one says aloud. The puppet seems sad. Resigned. As if it's seen this cycle play out countless times and already knows how it ends. It's not scary in the traditional way. It's tragic. It feels like a guardian, or maybe a prisoner, watching over a curse it can't escape. There are moments between the protagonist and the puppet that feel more emotionally charged than entire dialogues. A stare. A reflection. A moment when it lowers its head as if it recognizes the pain in the guard's eyes. These aren't scenes designed to scare, they're designed to connect. To make you wonder what soul, what history, might be inside that shell. And whether it wants revenge, or simply release. The building itself becomes a character too, because its behavior responds to the protagonist's journey. It hides things at first, files, recordings, rooms that shouldn't exist. But slowly it opens up. Walls grown open. Forgotten hallways reveal themselves. It's like Freddy's wants the truth to come out, but only when it's too late. And the way the protagonist interacts with the space changes, too. At first, they treat it like a workplace. By the end, it's a labyrinth of buried memories and unfinished business. Their walk becomes slower, more deliberate. Their eyes dart to specific corners like they already know what's waiting there. As if they've walked these halls before. And in the margins of the film, we get glimpses of other characters. Not through flashbacks, but through eerie remnants. There are names scribbled in logbooks. Birthday banners left behind with specific dates. VHS tapes with cheery messages that grow more fragmented with each playback. You start to pick up on subtle connections. A name you heard in a whisper matches a name on a photo. A voice in a tape sounds just a little too familiar. The supporting characters don't walk the screen. They haunt it. They shape the protagonist's path, not by being present, but by being unresolved. There's even a hint, just a flicker, that one of the animatronics might have a direct connection to someone the protagonist once knew. Maybe it's the way they hesitate before attacking. Maybe it's the way they mimic a sound the guard seems to recognize. It's subtle. Intentionally vague. But chilling in the way it suggests something deeper, darker, more personal is going on under the surface. What ties all of this together is that every character, living or not, seems to be caught in a loop. No one feels fully in control. Everyone is reacting to a pattern set long before the first night shift began. And that creates a terrifying beauty. A feeling that this isn't just a haunted pizzeria, it's a trap built from unresolved grief, repeating itself night after night, until someone, anyone, finally understands what it's trying to say. So yes, the character development in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 isn't loud. It's quiet. Relentless. It builds through atmosphere, through tension, through the slow unraveling of identities. The movie doesn't just give you characters to watch, it gives you characters to feel. And by the end, you don't just fear for them. You ache for them. Because maybe the scariest thing about this place isn't that it's haunted. It's that it remembers who you are, and refuses to let you forget. Let's dig even deeper into the performances in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 2025. Because this cast doesn't just act. They pull you into a shadowy spiral of fear, nostalgia, and psychological mystery that feels way too real for a movie about animatronics. This isn't just horror acting 101. This is character immersion at a level that sneaks under your skin and lingers there, scene after scene, night after night. The lead actor, let's just call them the guard, since their identity is wrapped in mystery, delivers a performance that's quietly mesmerizing. This isn't a loud, theatrical lead. This is someone who builds dread through the smallest, most precise choices. A glance that lingers too long on a photo. The barely noticeable hesitation before answering a phone. A twitch in the jaw when a metallic clang echoes in the distance. They don't tell you they're scared. They show you what it looks like when fear becomes routine. When panic starts folding into obsession, and obsession starts looking a lot like memory. And the evolution of this performance is so gradual and nuanced that you don't even notice the shift happening until you realize you're not watching a security guard anymore. You're watching someone trapped in a deeply personal reckoning. The first night, the guard is cautious but composed. By the second or third night, they're wide-eyed, sleep-deprived, muttering to themselves as they retrace steps in the dark like they're walking through dreams they've had before. And that's where the performance becomes almost spiritual. You get the sense this isn't just a job to them. This is destiny. Or maybe punishment. Or maybe, just maybe, they're not a stranger to this place after all. The way the actor handles the emotional breakdown is equally chilling and heartbreaking. There's a scene, no spoilers, but you'll know it when you see it, where the guard stumbles into a part of the building that shouldn't exist, and for the first time, they don't react with fear. They react with recognition. Their whole face changes. Their breathing slows. Their eyes fill, not with terror, but with something close to grief. That's not just good horror acting. That's trauma on screen, raw and unresolved. And the best part? The film never explains it outright. The actor makes you feel the backstory instead of reading it to you, and that's a rare kind of storytelling power. Now the supporting cast? They deserve just as much applause, because even in brief moments, they each make a lasting impression. One standout is the old technician character, who appears only in snippets of training tapes and eerie recordings. The way the actor delivers their lines with that fake corporate friendliness layered over deep fatigue and fear is pitch perfect. You can tell they're trying to sound like everything's fine, but they've seen things. Their voice cracks just enough. Their eyes dart off camera. They pause in all the wrong places, like they're remembering something they were told to forget. It's acting that plays with subtext, and in a movie filled with masks and illusions, subtext becomes everything. There's another character, an ex-employee, or maybe a local sheriff, whose few scenes are so grounded in realism that they almost feel out of place in this dreamlike horror world. They deliver every line like it's just another day, just another case. But then there's a beat. A moment where they hesitate. Their smile fades for half a second when someone says, "Fazbear." That tiny flicker says more than any jump scare could. These are people who know what's going on, who've decided that surviving means pretending it didn't happen. The actors capture that denial with terrifying precision. Let's not forget the kids, whether they're ghosts, memories, or something more ambiguous. Their performances are hauntingly controlled. There's no cheesy, creepy child shtick here. They don't need to say much at all. A quiet stare from across a hallway. A whisper that seems playful but lands like a dagger. One child actor in particular has a moment where they interact with an animatronic. Not with fear, but with what looks like affection. That scene sends a chill straight through you. Because either they don't understand the danger, or they remember it too well. The stillness, the eerie comfort, the way their body language accepts the horror instead of resisting it. It's a masterclass in restrained, atmospheric performance. And speaking of body language, let's get into the performers behind the animatronics. Yes, a lot of what we see is enhanced by visual effects and robotics, but you can tell there are real performers inside those suits or doing motion capture for them. Freddy doesn't just stomp. He looms. Bonnie doesn't just appear. He lingers. There's almost a dancer-like quality to the way the animatronics move, like their bodies remember the routines of the stage but are now twisted by rage and sorrow. These movements feel deliberate and eerie. They're not just programmed actions. They're choices. That kind of physical performance requires absolute precision and commitment. Whoever was under those suits deserves as much credit as the lead actor, because they give these monsters a personality, a rhythm, and a soul. And then there's the voice acting, the unsung heroes of horror. The voiceover work in FNAF 2 is not just atmospheric, it's invasive. A training tape might start with a cheerful tone but subtly becomes more fragmented, more glitchy, more desperate. There's one message that repeats a name over and over, slowly losing coherence, like someone trying to send a warning but getting pulled away mid-sentence. The actors behind those voices walk the fine line between helpful and horrifying. That's not just acting. That's haunting. Altogether, what makes the performances in this film so exceptional is that they don't perform like they're in a horror movie. No one is trying to oversell the moment. No one is screaming just to scream. Everyone is locked into the emotional truth of their character. Whether that truth is grief, guilt, obsession, or denial. And that commitment makes every single scene hit harder. Because you're not watching people act scared. You're watching people carry the weight of something they can't explain, and maybe can't survive. In the end, this cast doesn't just support the story of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. They are the story. Their performances are the strings that pull the whole narrative into focus. The horror, the mystery, the tragedy. It all lands because these actors believe in what they're experiencing. And once you believe them, there's no looking away. Alright, let's really unpack the direction in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 2025. Because this film isn't just directed, it's meticulously crafted, with a vision so precise it practically breathes and pulses with its own dark heartbeat. The director's hand is everywhere, guiding the audience through a labyrinth of tension, unease, and emotion, all while making sure you're never quite sure what's real and what's a trick of your own imagination. Starting with the tone, the director doesn't go for cheap thrills or non-stop jump scares. Instead, they embrace a slow, simmering dread that creeps in like a fog rolling over a deserted carnival at night. There's a real mastery in how the mood shifts. One moment you're watching a quiet security office, dull and almost boring, and the next you're gripping your seat because the slightest sound feels like it could shatter the silence. The director understands that horror is not just about what happens, but what could happen. That underlying sense of imminent threat is like a thread running through every scene, and it's the glue that holds the entire film together. The pacing is a brilliant dance of patience and payoff. The director doesn't rush you through the story. Instead, they make you live inside this nightmare world. Scenes stretch just long enough to make you feel uncomfortable. Hallways that seem to go on forever, lingering shots of empty rooms, and long pauses where the only sound is the slow hum of machinery. These moments force you to focus, to listen, to watch for the tiniest hint of movement or sound. And just when you start to think maybe nothing will happen, bam! The tension snaps like a wire and you're jolted back to full alert. It's a masterclass in timing, where silence becomes more terrifying than any scream. Visually, The director opts for a style that feels both intimate and claustrophobic. The camera work is deliberate, often static, almost voyeuristic, like you're spying on something you shouldn't be seeing. When the camera does move, it's subtle and purposeful. Slow pans that reveal unsettling details or sudden tilts that make you question what you're really looking at. The framing often uses shadows and darkness as characters themselves, swallowing parts of the screen and forcing your imagination to fill in the blanks. The lighting is a key player in this visual symphony, casting long, jagged shadows and bathing scenes in a sickly glow that feels both nostalgic and unnatural. It's like stepping into a nightmare painted with flickering neon and the glow of dusty arcade machines. The director's use of color also adds layers of meaning. There are moments drenched in cold blues and grays, evoking loneliness and isolation, contrasted with bursts of sickly yellow or red that feel like warning signs you're not meant to ignore. These color choices aren't just aesthetic, they're emotional signposts guiding you through the guard's unraveling psyche. Every hue feels intentional, contributing to the story's psychological depth without a word being spoken. Sound design, under the director's careful guidance, becomes an invisible character in itself. The film uses sound to unsettle rather than to explain. Mechanical whirs, distant clangs, the subtle creak of rusty hinges, all carefully layered to build an aural landscape that's both familiar and deeply unnerving. When music does come in, it's rarely traditional scoring. Instead, the director favors distorted, looped and glitchy sound motifs. Sometimes a warped children's lullaby, other times a fractured melody that cuts off abruptly, heightening the feeling that reality is breaking down. The placement of these sounds is so precise that you start to anticipate them, but they never come when you expect, twisting your sense of timing and trust in the film's reality. Narratively, the director plays with structure in a way that's bold but never confusing. The story unfolds in a non-linear fashion, with memories and hallucinations bleeding into the present, blurring timelines and perspectives. This isn't just a gimmick, it's a deliberate choice to immerse you in the fractured mind of the protagonist. Flashbacks are often triggered by seemingly mundane objects, a toy, a faded photo, a birthday candle, and each one is shot with a softer focus, almost dreamlike, in stark contrast to the harsh, cold realism of the present. This contrast draws you deeper into the emotional core of the story, making the horror not just about monsters, but about loss, regret, and the scars left by trauma. The director also uses visual motifs throughout the film to reinforce themes. Recurring images of clocks, empty chairs, flickering lights, and peeling wallpaper create a sense of decay and suspended time. These details aren't just background, they're woven into the narrative fabric, reminding you constantly that this is a world stuck between past and present, memory and nightmare. It's these small touches that elevate the storytelling from a straightforward horror tale to a haunting meditation on memory and guilt. One of the director's most impressive feats is the restraint shown with the animatronics themselves. Instead of flooding the screen with constant monster attacks, the director opts to build suspense through what's not shown. When an animatronic finally appears, it's a cinematic event, shot with a slow reveal, often partially obscured by shadow or camera angle. The pacing of these reveals is masterful, creating moments of pure terror that linger long after the animatronic disappears. The director treats these creatures almost like tragic figures, part menace, part lost souls, adding unexpected depth to what could easily have been one-dimensional horror icons. The film's climax and denouement reflect the director's commitment to emotional complexity over cheap thrills. The ending doesn't resolve neatly or offer clear answers. Instead, it leaves you suspended in uncertainty, holding on to ambiguous images and haunting questions. The director chooses to end on a note of lingering unease, inviting viewers to sit with the ambiguity and darkness long after the credits roll. It's a bold choice that challenges the typical horror movie formula and stays true to the film's thematic heart. Overall, the director's vision for Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is one of meticulous control, atmospheric storytelling, and emotional resonance. Every element, tone, pacing, visuals, sound, and narrative structure, is crafted to pull you into a world where fear is not just a reaction but a state of being. The director doesn't just make a horror movie. They create an experience that twists your perception, plays with your expectations, and stays with you in the quiet moments when you least expect it. It's a haunting journey, and you're invited to walk its shadowed halls with eyes wide open. Alright, let's really sink our teeth into the cinematography of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 2025. Because this film's visual storytelling is nothing short of a masterclass in creating pure, unrelenting atmosphere. It's not just about capturing images on a screen, it's about sculpting fear, tension, and emotion frame by frame, shot by shot. The way the camera moves, how the light dances and hides, and the careful framing of every scene all work together to make the setting not just a backdrop, but a character in its own right. You feel like you're trapped inside the twisted world of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, with its decaying walls, flickering lights, and lurking horrors just out of sight. Let's start with the camera angles, because they do so much more than just show us what's happening. One of the most striking techniques is how the cinematographer uses perspective to manipulate your sense of safety and scale. Low-angle shots are deployed to make the animatronics loom with terrifying dominance. When those mechanical beasts appear in frame, the camera looks up at them, giving them a towering, almost godlike presence that feels overwhelming and impossible to escape. It's a visual cue that you are small and vulnerable compared to these monstrous creations. In contrast, there are plenty of claustrophobic close-ups tightly framing the protagonist's face or hands, capturing every flicker of panic, every twitch, every bead of sweat. These close-ups pull you into the character's mind, making the fear feel intimate and immediate, like you're right there, trapped in that tiny security office, heart-pounding. Wide shots, on the other hand, are used sparingly but with devastating impact. When the camera pulls back, it exposes the cavernous, desolate corridors and empty rooms of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The framing emphasizes the sheer scale of the environment. Vast, shadow-filled spaces that seem to swallow sound and light. The emptiness feels oppressive, amplifying the isolation of the security guard as they are dwarfed by the endless hallways. These wide shots create a stark contrast to the cramped, cluttered security office, reminding you that outside those few square feet lies a maze of unseen threats. The framing here visually captures a feeling of entrapment in an alien and hostile world, making every movement in the dark hallways a potential source of terror. Lighting is where the cinematography truly shines and becomes an emotional storyteller. The film's lighting is a study in shadows and subtle illumination. You won't find bright, harsh lights here. Instead, the scenes are often bathed in dim, uneven lighting. Flickering fluorescent tubes overhead, the soft glow of malfunctioning monitors, and the eerie flicker of neon signs. This low-key lighting creates deep pockets of shadow where the eye can't rest, forcing you to scan the edges of the frame for signs of movement. It's a masterful use of chiaroscuro, light and dark in dynamic tension, that heightens the suspense and evokes a mood that's both nostalgic and nightmarish. The lighting shifts fluidly to reflect the emotional states of the characters as well. During moments of panic, harsh, almost clinical light floods the space, heightening the sense of exposure and vulnerability. When despair or confusion sets in, the lighting sinks back into soft, uncertain gloom, as if the environment itself is retreating. Color plays a subtle but vital role too. Muted blues and grays dominate the palette, underscoring the cold, sterile feeling of the security office and the mechanical heart of the pizzeria. These colors evoke isolation and melancholy. They're punctuated by occasional splashes of sickly yellow or deep red, warning colors that feel almost like visual alarms. These colors aren't just decoration. They serve as emotional signals, cueing the audience into shifts in mood and danger. Framing and composition are where the film's visual language becomes truly poetic. The director and cinematographer use the environment to frame the characters in ways that communicate themes without words. Doorways, windows, and narrow corridors are used repeatedly as frames within frames, trapping characters in boxes of light and shadow. These compositions visually reinforce the feeling of entrapment. Characters are constantly surrounded, hemmed in by the decaying, claustrophobic architecture. You'll notice shots where the protagonist is framed in a doorway or between two dark walls, emphasizing their vulnerability and isolation just before something terrifying happens. Shadows frequently encroach on the edges of the frame, growing longer and more ominous, giving the impression that something unseen is always lurking just out of view. These deliberate compositions serve as visual storytelling devices that ratchet up the tension without a single line of dialogue. There are several visually arresting moments that stick in your mind long after the film ends. One such scene features a slow, lingering shot of a broken animatronic slumped in a corner, half illuminated by the flickering light of a dusty Christmas string. The camera holds on this image, inviting a complex mix of emotions: fear, pity, and eerie fascination. As you realize this creature is more than metal and wires, it's a relic of a haunted past, forgotten and decaying. Another striking sequence uses a distorted fisheye lens to capture the protagonist's spiraling paranoia, warping the space around him. Walls bend unnaturally, corners seem to close in, and familiar objects twist into grotesque shapes. This visual distortion is disorienting and claustrophobic, perfectly mirroring the character's mental unraveling and drawing the audience deeper into his nightmare. Movement within the frame is used sparingly but effectively. The camera mostly remains still, heightening suspense by making you hyper-aware of every subtle change. When it does move, the motion is deliberate. Slow pans down dark hallways, barely perceptible tilts that suggest something shifting just out of sight, and occasional shaky handheld shots that echo the character's rising panic. This contrast between stillness and motion keeps viewers constantly on edge, mirroring the fluctuating heartbeat of the narrative. Reflection and shadow play add another layer of complexity to the cinematography. Mirrors, glass panes, and polished surfaces become portals for distorted images, flickering shadows, and hidden movements. The reflections often show figures or movements that aren't fully explained. Are they real, hallucinations, or tricks of the light? These visual puzzles deepen the sense of unease and blur the boundary between reality and nightmare. Shadows don't just fall randomly. They stretch unnaturally, hinting at presences beyond what the camera reveals, teasing your imagination into seeing threats lurking just beyond perception. The use of point-of-view shots is particularly immersive. At times, the camera takes on the perspective of the security guard, showing us the world through their eyes. Whether peering through security monitors or glancing down dim corridors, these POV shots thrust you directly into the claustrophobic tension, making every blink, every twitch, and every breath feel personal. You don't just watch the characters' fear, you experience it alongside them, sharing their constant dread and hypervigilance. Alright, let's really get into the nitty-gritty of the editing and pacing in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 2025, because this is where the film's heartbeat truly comes alive and pulls you deeper into its chilling world. Editing isn't just about piecing scenes together. It's about controlling how you feel moment to moment, how your tension rises and falls, and how the story unfolds in a way that grips you so tight you can't look away. This film's editing team deserves huge credit for crafting a flow that's both hypnotic and unpredictable, perfectly matching the nightmare-fueled atmosphere of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. From the very start, the editing sets a deliberate rhythm that feels like the slow, steady ticking of a clock counting down to something dreadful. The cuts are measured and precise, slipping you into the monotonous grind of a night security guard shift. You see static-filled camera feeds, glimpses of empty hallways, and long shots of blinking lights. These quieter moments are given room to breathe, but not so much that the tension fades. It's a clever use of pacing that makes you hyper-aware of every small sound or flicker of movement. The editing here invites you into a state of alertness, a calm before the storm where your mind begins to race and imagine horrors lurking just beyond what you see. But then, just when you think the rhythm is steady, the editing shifts gears without warning. Suddenly, the pace quickens dramatically, chopping scenes into rapid-fire bursts of terror. Quick cuts, jump scares, and shaky handheld camera movements mirror the protagonist's rising panic, making you feel like you're right there in the chaos. The editing never lets this frantic pace overstay its welcome though. It smartly pulls back just as quickly, allowing long tense shots where silence dominates, making every creak and whisper jump out at you. This ebb and flow, between frenetic chaos and suffocating stillness, creates a pulse-pounding rhythm that keeps your adrenaline surging. The transitions between scenes are another highlight. They aren't just smooth bridges, they're part of the storytelling itself. Often, the cuts are disguised as flickers from malfunctioning monitors or sudden power surges, pulling you deeper into the haunted tech environment of the pizzeria. This creates a disorienting blur where time and space feel warped, and you're left wondering if what you're seeing is real or just a trick of failing electronics. These transition effects make the entire viewing experience feel immersive and uncanny, pulling you further under the spell of the film's unsettling world. Time itself is bent and manipulated through editing choices. The story isn't always linear. Flashbacks, fragmented memories, and simultaneous events unfold through quick cuts that demand your attention and keep your mind racing. This non-linear approach to storytelling adds layers of complexity, making you piece together clues and re-examine what you thought you understood. It adds a sense of mystery and paranoia, perfect for a film steeped in psychological horror. The editing uses time not just as a narrative tool, but as a way to keep you off balance, always guessing what's coming next. The pacing cleverly mirrors the emotional highs and lows of the protagonist. When despair or hopelessness takes hold, the editing slows down, lingering on bleak shots that feel heavy and suffocating. These moments give you space to feel the weight of the situation, the crushing loneliness, the creeping dread. But then, when a spark of hope or determination flickers, the pace picks up again, injecting energy and urgency into the scenes. This rhythm of slowing down and speeding up not only reflects the character's internal state but also guides your own emotional journey, making the film a roller coaster of feelings. Sound editing works hand in hand with the visual cuts to amplify the pacing. There's a masterful use of silence, cutting sound abruptly or allowing ambient noises like mechanical whirs, distant footsteps, or the faint hum of electricity to fill the space. These soundscapes heighten the impact of sudden cuts or jump scares, making them feel even more visceral. The interplay between sound and editing is a constant dance, designed to keep you tense and alert, never letting your guard down for a second. One subtle but brilliant editing choice is how the film sometimes holds shots just a little longer than expected, especially when focusing on the animatronics. Instead of quick cuts away, the camera lingers on twitching, half-seen movements or unsettling facial expressions of the robots. This deliberate patience builds a hypnotic dread, forcing you to confront the menace head-on rather than hiding from it. These moments are like slow burn shocks, sneaking up on your nerves and making the inevitable jump scares even more effective. The way the film jumps between perspectives, security cameras, the protagonist's point of view, and wide shots of the environment, is expertly handled by the editors. Each cut shifts your viewpoint in a way that keeps the narrative fresh and dynamic. It's like you're constantly being pulled deeper into the maze of the pizzeria, seeing things from multiple angles and never quite settling into a comfortable vantage point. This constant shift in perspective feeds the film's themes of paranoia and surveillance, making you feel both watcher and hunted. Throughout the movie, the editing uses pacing to toy with your expectations. Sometimes it builds tension slowly, teasing you with barely perceptible sounds and subtle movements in the dark. Other times it throws you straight into a chaotic flurry of motion and noise, disorienting and thrilling in equal measure. This unpredictability keeps you off balance and fully engaged, unable to guess what's coming next and eager to see how the next sequence unfolds. In essence, the editing and pacing of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 are crafted with surgical precision to serve the film's unique blend of psychological horror and suspense. It's a dance of slow, creeping dread punctuated by explosive bursts of terror, all tied together with transitions and cuts that make the world feel alive and constantly shifting. The rhythm of the film isn't just background. It's the very pulse of the story, guiding you through fear, confusion, and adrenaline with every cut and every beat. This makes the viewing experience not just a story to watch, but a terrifying ride to survive. The soundtrack and score in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 2025, do much more than simply fill the background. They act as the unseen puppeteers orchestrating every moment of tension, fear, and emotion throughout the film. From the very beginning, the music sets a tone that's equal parts nostalgic and unsettling, instantly plunging you into a world where childhood innocence is warped into something dark and sinister. It's this uncanny blend that makes the soundtrack feel alive, breathing alongside the characters and animatronics, and pulling you deeper into the haunted halls of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. One of the most fascinating aspects of the score is its masterful use of contrast and duality. The film skillfully blends light, whimsical melodies reminiscent of carnival music and children's lullabies with eerie, distorted undertones that twist those familiar sounds into something grotesque and unnerving. Think of a music box playing a cheerful tune, but the gears are grinding, the tempo slows and speeds unpredictably, and the notes warp as if the box itself is about to break. This dissonance creates a chilling atmosphere where the soundtrack flirts with comfort, only to yank you back into dread. Your brain instinctively recognizing innocence, but your nerves telling you something is deeply wrong. The recurring motifs scattered throughout the score are a brilliant storytelling device in themselves. Certain musical phrases are tightly linked to specific animatronics or key events, so when those haunting notes creep in, you instantly sense the presence of danger even before anything appears on screen. This sonic language acts as a subtle warning system, quietly preparing you for the chaos to come. As the film progresses, these motifs evolve, sometimes appearing muted or twisted, other times crashing through loudly, building a musical narrative that parallels the story's escalating tension and horror. It's like the soundtrack is a living entity, constantly shaping the mood and reminding you that the nightmare lurking in the shadows is never far away. Silence, or the strategic absence of music, plays an equally powerful role in the film's sound design. During moments where tension needs to be razor-sharp, the soundtrack pulls back completely, allowing ambient noises, the mechanical clanks of animatronics, distant echoes, the faint hum of faulty lights, to take center stage. These quiet moments force you to lean in and listen carefully, heightening your senses and making every small sound feel amplified and threatening. The soundtrack knows how to hold back, using silence like a loaded gun, so when music or sound effects burst back in, the impact is intensified exponentially. This clever interplay between sound and silence keeps you off balance, always expecting the next scare but never quite knowing when it will strike. What truly sets this score apart is how seamlessly it weaves itself into the fabric of the film's storytelling. The music doesn't overpower the dialogue or sound effects. Instead, it enhances every emotional beat and narrative turn with a subtle yet powerful presence. Whether it's the slow, creeping buildup of anxiety during the quiet hours of the night shift or the sudden flurry of frantic notes during a jump scare, the score adapts fluidly to the film's shifting moods. It amplifies fear, evokes sorrow, and even provides fleeting moments of hope, guiding your emotional journey through the pizzeria's twisted landscape. The use of electronic elements and industrial sounds in the soundtrack is a stroke of genius that perfectly complements the mechanical and creepy nature of the animatronics. Synthesized drones, distorted pulses, and metallic clangs are woven into the music, creating an audio environment that feels both futuristic and decayed, like a machine slowly rusting away in the dark. These textures add layers of unease, making the soundtrack feel tactile and immersive. It's as if you can hear the gears grinding beneath the animatronics' cold exteriors, reminding you constantly that beneath their friendly masks lies something cold, artificial, and dangerous. The soundtrack also isn't afraid to slow down and shift into haunting melancholic melodies that bring a surprising emotional depth to the film. These softer, more reflective moments remind you that beyond the horror lies a story about lost innocence, trauma, and desperation. The lullaby-like pieces provide necessary breathing room from the relentless tension, adding a layer of humanity to the nightmarish world. There are moments where the music almost feels mournful, wrapping the audience in a fragile calm that contrasts beautifully with the surrounding terror, making the horror feel all the more poignant. A standout technique in the film's sound design is how the music blurs the line between score and environmental sound. Sometimes musical notes fade into the creaks of a door hinge or the buzzing of flickering lights, creating a seamless blend that disorients the audience. This clever fusion makes it difficult to separate what's part of the soundtrack from what's happening diegetically in the world, heightening the immersive quality of the film and keeping you on edge. It's a sensory trick that deepens the sense of paranoia and unease, making the environment itself feel alive and hostile. Throughout the film, the soundtrack evolves in tandem with the narrative's emotional arc. It moves from playful and almost innocent melodies to dark, oppressive soundscapes that engulf the characters in fear and hopelessness. This progression mirrors the protagonist's descent into terror and uncertainty, creating a shared journey between viewer and story. The score's ability to convey such a wide range of emotions without words is a testament to its craftsmanship and its vital role in shaping the film's atmosphere. Ultimately, in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the music and sound design are far more than just background elements. They're essential storytellers that wrap themselves around every scene, every character, and every moment of suspense. The soundtrack seeps into your subconscious, embedding itself deep in your psyche, making the haunted world of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza linger long after the credits roll. It's an auditory experience that doesn't just accompany the horror. It becomes the horror, haunting your thoughts and keeping you listening for the next unsettling note long after the movie ends. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 2025, isn't just a roller coaster of jump scares and creepy animatronics lurking in the shadows. It's a surprisingly rich tapestry woven with deep, thought-provoking themes that elevate it far beyond the typical horror flick. As you follow the night guard's terrifying shifts, the film subtly drapes its narrative with ideas about fear, trauma, innocence lost, control, technology, and even existential dread, inviting you to peer beneath the surface of the haunted pizzeria and reflect on some unsettling truths about the world, and ourselves. One of the most prominent themes buzzing under the surface is surveillance and paranoia. The protagonist spends their nights glued to a bank of security cameras, constantly scanning for threats, trying to anticipate danger before it strikes. But the film cleverly flips this scenario. While you watch the monitors, you get the creeping feeling that you are also being watched, trapped in a web of observation that feels cold, unfeeling, and relentless. This taps into very modern anxieties about privacy in a digital age, where cameras, trackers, and data collectors seem to lurk everywhere, silently recording every move. The animatronics themselves become chilling symbols of this invasive gaze. Machines that never blink, never look away, mechanical eyes that watch patiently as they close in. It's a haunting metaphor for feeling powerless under constant scrutiny, blurring the lines between protector and prey. Closely tied to this is the theme of lost innocence. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, with its cheerful lights, playful music, and kid-friendly vibe, represents a world meant to be safe and joyful, a sanctuary for children's fun. But the film shatters this illusion, revealing a darker truth underneath the colorful facade. Stories of trauma, neglect, and violence that stain the place's history. The animatronics, once meant to be innocent entertainers, are now corrupted vessels of horror, their friendly faces twisted into something sinister. This contrast creates a disturbing tension throughout the film, making you question how many places, people, or memories we trust are hiding secrets and shadows. It's a reflection on how innocence can be fragile, easily shattered, and how what seems pure on the surface can harbor darkness beneath. The theme of guilt and unresolved trauma also threads its way through the story, adding emotional weight beneath the scares. The protagonist isn't just battling mechanical monsters, they're confronting haunting memories and personal regrets that refuse to stay buried. The flickering lights and shifting shadows aren't just external threats. They symbolize inner demons that play out in relentless cycles of fear and pain. Fragmented flashbacks and hints dropped throughout the film suggest deeper tragedies, making the animatronics feel like manifestations of guilt and loss. This psychological layer adds depth to the horror, transforming it into a story about the ways trauma can trap you, replaying endlessly until you find a way to face it. It's a haunting reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones inside us. The struggle between control and chaos pulses at the heart of the film's tension. The night guard desperately tries to maintain order, monitoring cameras, following strict protocols, flipping switches, attempting to impose structure on a creeping nightmare. Yet, the film reveals how fragile this control really is, how easily it can slip away under pressure. The animatronics, with their unpredictable movements and relentless pursuit, embody the chaos threatening to overwhelm the protagonist. This dynamic reflects a universal human fear: losing control over your environment, your fate, and even your own mind. The constant push and pull between order and anarchy keeps the tension taut, making every night feel like a battle against inevitable collapse. Technology and its unintended consequences form another fascinating theme. The animatronics represent advanced machines designed for innocent entertainment, but in the film, they become twisted and dangerous, sometimes due to malfunction, neglect, or something more sinister. This highlights the uneasy relationship we have with technology, marveling at its possibilities but fearing when it slips beyond our control. The film warns about the dark side of technological progress, how our creations can become sources of terror if we fail to understand or manage them properly. It's a cautionary tale wrapped in gears and circuitry, where the line between tool and monster blurs. There's also a subtle current of existential dread running beneath the surface. The protagonist's endless repetitive night shifts feel like a trap, a cycle with no clear escape, mirroring larger questions about fate, meaning, and the human condition. The relentless passage of time, the mechanical routine, and the unending threat of danger create a sense of despair that transcends the horror genre. It's as if the film asks whether we're doomed to repeat mistakes and suffer endlessly, or if there's hope for breaking free from the darkness. This existential layer adds philosophical depth, encouraging viewers to think beyond the scares and consider the bigger picture of life, fear, and survival. What's impressive is how the film integrates these heavy themes naturally into its storytelling, never feeling preachy or forced. The ideas aren't delivered in big speeches or obvious symbolism. They emerge from the atmosphere, the characters' struggles, and the haunting setting itself. The themes quietly seep into the experience, enriching the story and giving it emotional and intellectual resonance. You might walk away thinking it's just a scary movie, but the ideas stick with you, nudging you to reflect on privacy, innocence, trauma, and control long after the credits roll. In all, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 uses its horror foundation to explore complex and deeply human themes, making it not only a terrifying thrill ride but also a thoughtful examination of fear in its many forms. Whether it's the fear of being watched, the loss of childhood safety, the weight of past trauma, or the fragile balance between control and chaos, the film taps into universal anxieties and emotions. These themes add layers of meaning and texture, transforming the movie into a chilling, immersive journey that haunts your mind and emotions well beyond the flickering screen. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 delivers an intricate dance between visual effects and CGI that truly elevates the film's eerie atmosphere and overall immersion. The filmmakers take a masterful approach by blending practical effects with digital wizardry, creating a world that feels palpably real yet unsettlingly surreal. Right from the start, you notice that the animatronics don't just appear as digital creations slapped onto a screen. Instead, they seem to occupy physical space with weight, texture, and detail that make them disturbingly lifelike. This tactile quality owes a lot to the use of practical effects, mechanical puppets, animatronic suits, and physical props that interact seamlessly with actors and the environment. This hands-on craftsmanship grounds the horror in reality and lets you almost feel the cold, rusty metal and worn-out paint under the flickering lights, which makes their presence all the more chilling. Where CGI comes into play, It doesn't overshadow the practical elements but rather enhances and extends their capabilities. For instance, the animatronics movements sometimes require fluidity and speed that would be impossible to achieve with puppetry alone. In these moments, CGI steps in to create unnerving, jerky yet sometimes disturbingly smooth motions that make the machines feel unpredictable, like they're alive but trapped in a broken mechanical rhythm. These digital enhancements are expertly blended, so you rarely notice where the practical ends and the CGI begins, preserving suspension of disbelief and drawing you deeper into the film's nightmare world. The film's lighting design works hand in hand with the visual effects to keep the viewer immersed. Dimly lit corridors, shadows that seem to shift just out of the corner of your eye, flickering fluorescent lights. All these elements cleverly hide the edges of CGI and amplify the practical effects. This clever use of darkness and shadow doesn't just serve the scares. It also cleverly masks any digital imperfections, making the animatronics feel as if they're lurking just beyond your vision, waiting to pounce. The interplay between light and shadow also enhances the textures on the animatronics, the chipped paint, rust spots, and exposed wiring, heightening the sense that these aren't just props or digital models but creatures with a sinister history. In addition to animatronics, the filmmakers use visual effects for environmental details that build the world's claustrophobic, worn-down vibe. Dust particles floating in beams of weak light, flickering security monitors with glitch effects, and subtle digital distortions mimic surveillance footage imperfections. These small but effective touches add layers of realism and unease, reminding you that you're watching through the eyes of a security guard desperately trying to keep track of everything in a space that's slowly unraveling. The blending of practical set pieces and digital enhancements crafts a living, breathing environment that feels trapped in time, dusty, decayed, and terrifyingly alive. One of the standout aspects of the visual effects is how the animatronics' facial features are brought to life with subtle CGI touches. Tiny, almost imperceptible twitches in their eyes, the slow tilting of heads, and minuscule changes in expression transform them from mere robots into deeply unsettling characters. This borderline uncanny valley effect is crucial because it makes the animatronics feel almost human but not quite, straddling the line between familiar and alien. This ambiguity keeps you on edge, as you're never quite sure if they're simply machines or something far more sinister. These detailed expressions enhance tension by making the creatures feel sentient, watching you just as much as you watch them. The film also uses digital effects to simulate glitches and distortions, especially through the security camera feeds that are central to the story. These moments of static interference, flickering images, and brief frame drops mimic the experience of faulty surveillance technology, reinforcing the feeling of instability and unreliability in the world the protagonist inhabits. It's a smart narrative device that makes you question what's real and what's part of a malfunctioning system, adding psychological layers to the horror. These effects also mirror the film's themes of uncertainty and loss of control, as even the technology meant to protect the night guard fails and betrays them. When animatronics move swiftly through the hallways or suddenly appear in front of the cameras, the visual effects cleverly manipulate depth and scale to make the environment feel more immersive and claustrophobic. The corridors stretch and twist in subtle ways, creating a sense of disorientation that mirrors the protagonist's growing panic. Shadows lengthen and warp, amplifying the feeling that the space itself is hostile and unpredictable. This use of digital compositing and camera work adds to the tension by transforming the setting into an active participant in the story's dread. It's also worth noting how the filmmakers balance the tension between showing and hiding with the effects. Instead of relying on over-the-top CGI monsters bursting into view, the film often uses shadows, partial glimpses, or fleeting movements enhanced by digital effects to build anticipation and fear. This restraint keeps the scares effective and makes the moments when the animatronics fully reveal themselves all the more impactful. The combination of subtle visual cues and sudden digital flourishes makes the horror unpredictable and deeply engaging. Finally, the synergy between practical and digital effects extends beyond just visuals. It's supported by sound design and lighting choices that complete the immersive experience. The mechanical whirs, metallic creaks, and unsettling clicks emanate from physical props but are enhanced and layered with digital audio effects to create a convincing soundscape. Meanwhile, the flickering lights and sudden darkness are timed with the visual effects to maximize suspense and surprise. In sum, the visual effects and CGI in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 are not just technical showpieces but essential storytelling tools that deepen immersion, enhance atmosphere, and amplify fear. The careful balance between practical craftsmanship and digital innovation creates a believable, terrifying world where animatronics seem hauntingly alive. This thoughtful integration ensures the effects support the narrative and emotional beats perfectly, making you feel like you're trapped inside the haunted pizzeria alongside the night guard, constantly looking over your shoulder for what might be lurking just out of sight. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 truly excels in crafting a set design and choice of locations that immerse you fully into its eerie and unsettling universe. The filmmakers and production designers have gone above and beyond to create a world that feels lived in, authentic, and yet deeply disturbing. A place where every corner tells a story, and every detail adds layers of atmosphere and tension. From the moment you enter the pizzeria, the environment envelopes you like a character itself, with its mix of nostalgic charm and creeping decay that perfectly mirrors the film's haunting narrative. The interior of the pizzeria is a masterclass in atmospheric set design. It's a patchwork of faded cheer and creeping neglect. The walls are plastered with tattered posters advertising past birthday parties and animatronic shows, many torn or stained with age. The floors creak underfoot, covered in cracked linoleum tiles and scuffed marks from years of foot traffic, and the party tables, once vibrant and inviting, are now littered with empty pizza boxes, stained cups, and remnants of long-forgotten celebrations. This careful attention to detail does more than set the scene. It tells silent stories of happier times now swallowed by the shadow of something far more sinister. One of the most compelling aspects of the set design is how it perfectly balances the childlike whimsy of a family entertainment venue with an undercurrent of menace. Brightly colored balloons, oversized cartoonish murals, and garish lighting clash with broken animatronics, flickering lights, and cracked ceilings, creating an unsettling contrast that keeps you perpetually on edge. It's a world where innocence has been corrupted, and that duality seeps into every frame, making you uneasy even in the most mundane of spaces. This contrast is key because it allows the set to evoke both nostalgia and fear simultaneously, making the environment feel psychologically complex rather than just visually creepy. The layout of the pizzeria and adjacent rooms is designed to enhance the film's claustrophobic tension. Narrow corridors twist and turn, often shrouded in darkness or broken light, making navigation seem perilous and disorienting. Storage closets and maintenance rooms are crammed with old equipment, spare parts, and dusty tools, adding to the feeling of a place stuck in time and falling apart. This design doesn't just create physical barriers but plays with your sense of space, making you feel trapped and vulnerable, much like the protagonist. Every hallway could hide a lurking animatronic, every shadow might conceal danger, and this clever use of space is a brilliant storytelling tool. The security office is a highlight in terms of set design, functioning as the nerve center where much of the film's tension unfolds. It's a small, cluttered space filled with outdated monitors, flickering screens, and stacks of paperwork that hint at a long history of paranoia and failed attempts to control the animatronics. The confined nature of the office makes it feel like a cage, reinforcing the protagonist's isolation and increasing suspense as the terrifying animatronics inch closer. Details like worn armrests, taped-up controls, and peeling paint reinforce the sense that this job has worn down every night guard before, adding a lived-in authenticity that grounds the film's scares in reality. Props scattered throughout the set are not just decorative but serve as silent storytellers. The remnants of birthday parties, deflated balloons, smashed cakes, forgotten toys, speak to a place once filled with joy but now hollowed out and haunted by its past. These elements create a rich tapestry of environment storytelling, where the audience pieces together the decline of the pizzeria through visual clues rather than exposition. Even minor details, like an old security badge lying on the floor or a flickering out-of-order sign, contribute to the narrative by suggesting previous incidents and mounting danger. Animatronics are expertly positioned throughout the pizzeria to maximize tension and visual storytelling. They peek from behind curtains, slouch in shadowy corners, and sit lifelessly on broken stages, their chipped paint and exposed wiring reinforcing their decayed state. Their placement feels natural but is also deliberately designed to unsettle. The way they're integrated into the environment encourages the audience's eyes to dart around the frame constantly, searching for movement or signs of threat. This strategic positioning turns the entire set into a psychological playground, where the environment actively participates in building suspense. The exterior shots of the pizzeria also play a significant role in establishing tone. The building's weathered facade, flickering neon signs, and cracked parking lot littered with debris create an immediate sense of abandonment and isolation. This exterior world feels like a forgotten relic, cut off from the vibrant life it once hosted, which adds to the oppressive mood. Even brief glimpses of the outside reinforce that this place exists in a bubble, removed from safety or escape, heightening the stakes for anyone trapped inside after dark. Lighting design works hand in hand with set and location choices to create a visually compelling and mood-heavy experience. Flickering fluorescent bulbs, broken light fixtures, and shafts of dim, uneven light carve out deep shadows and highlight the texture of peeling paint and cracked surfaces. This interplay between light and dark adds depth and dimension, making the environment feel layered and immersive. The lighting also directs focus, guiding the audience's eyes toward potential threats or areas of narrative importance, and subtly manipulating emotions. Calm one moment, tense the next. The filmmakers also use environmental sounds and visual cues embedded in the set to heighten immersion. The occasional creak of floorboards, the hum of faulty wiring, and the distant echo of mechanical movements create a sensory-rich setting that feels alive and unpredictable. These sound details are tied to the physicality of the set, making the pizzeria more than just a location. It becomes a character with moods, rhythms, and secrets. Furthermore, the set design cleverly supports the film's themes of decay, neglect, and corrupted innocence. The visual storytelling present in the props, architecture, and spatial layout reinforce the narrative's emotional core, making the environment a reflection of the underlying horror. It's not just a scary backdrop but a dynamic space that shapes the characters' experiences and amplifies the story's tension and mystery. In summary, the set design and locations in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 go far beyond mere decoration. They create a believable, immersive world filled with detail and texture that captivates the viewer's imagination. From the haunted corridors to the cluttered security office and the crumbling exterior, every element works together to build an atmosphere thick with nostalgia and dread. This thoughtful layered design makes the pizzeria feel like a living nightmare you can almost reach out and touch. An environment that pulls you deeper into the film's chilling narrative and keeps you looking over your shoulder long after the credits roll. When diving deeper into the dialogue and script of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, it becomes clear just how carefully crafted the writing is to serve both the story and the intense atmosphere. The dialogue isn't just filler or a means to explain the plot. It's a vital tool that breathes life into the characters, sets the tone, and subtly drives the suspense in ways you might not notice at first glance but feel deeply as you watch. What's fascinating is how the script manages to be engaging and natural, even though the setting is so claustrophobic and unnerving, making the conversations feel like authentic exchanges between people on the edge rather than just scripted horror clichés. One of the first things that stands out is how the writing uses brevity to its advantage. The characters rarely engage in long speeches or over-explained dialogue. Instead, the script favors short, clipped sentences and sharp exchanges that mirror the tension in the air. This keeps the pacing tight and the viewer alert because every word feels deliberate. There's no room to breathe or relax. Even mundane lines like instructions or safety reminders carry a heavy undertone, as if the speaker is trying to stay calm while secretly knowing that danger is closing in. This subtle tension in the dialogue adds layers to what might otherwise be simple conversations, making the writing feel alive with unspoken fear. The script also excels at layering subtext beneath the surface of everyday dialogue. What characters don't say often speaks louder than what they do. There are pauses, interrupted sentences, and moments of hesitation that suggest anxiety, distrust, or unresolved issues. This use of implied meaning creates a richer emotional landscape and invites the audience to read between the lines. It's like a puzzle where every word is a clue to understanding the characters' mental states and the growing horror around them. The writing trusts the viewer's intelligence to pick up on these subtle hints, which makes the experience more immersive and rewarding. Humor, surprisingly, plays a strategic role in the dialogue. In a setting as tense and dark as this haunted pizzeria, moments of dry wit or sarcastic remarks serve as brief but crucial emotional relief. The script uses humor sparingly but effectively, giving the characters distinct voices and making them feel human. These moments of levity don't undermine the horror. Instead, they highlight the characters' resilience and make the scary moments hit even harder by contrast. The mix of dread and dark humor makes the film's tone more complex and engaging, offering a break from relentless tension without breaking immersion. The dialogue is peppered with memorable lines that quickly become thematic anchors for the film. Whether it's cryptic warnings, ominous instructions, or fearful whispers, these lines stick in the mind and often resurface at key moments, reinforcing the film's atmosphere and narrative threads. The script uses repetition strategically, allowing certain phrases to gain weight and significance as the story progresses. These recurring lines act like echoes within the pizzeria's walls, reminding both the characters and the audience that danger is never far away. This technique makes the dialogue more than just conversation. It becomes a storytelling device that adds rhythm and cohesion to the film. Emotional depth in the dialogue is subtle but impactful. Instead of overt emotional outbursts, the script leans into understated moments of vulnerability. Characters reveal their fears, frustrations, and doubts in quiet, simple exchanges that feel authentic and relatable. These emotional beats help humanize the story, reminding us that behind the animatronic horror, there are people grappling with very real terror and uncertainty. This nuanced writing ensures the audience connects with the characters on a personal level, heightening the stakes and making the scares hit closer to home. The script cleverly uses limited communication methods, like walkie-talkies, intercom messages, and brief phone calls, to create a fragmented and tense narrative. These snippets of conversation hint at a larger backstory and add layers of mystery, as characters share partial information, rumors, or urgent warnings. This fragmented dialogue style increases the sense of isolation and confusion, reflecting the protagonist's experience and making the viewer piece together what's happening bit by bit. It's a smart storytelling choice that keeps the audience engaged, curious, and slightly unsettled as the puzzle slowly comes together. The confined setting of the film heavily influences the dialogue style. The writing captures the claustrophobia and paranoia of a lone night guard surrounded by malfunctioning animatronics perfectly. The conversations are often tense, cautious, or clipped, reflecting the character's distrust and growing fear. The dialogue's rhythm mimics the ebb and flow of suspense, sometimes slow and tentative, other times rapid and panicked, mirroring the protagonist's mental state and escalating danger. This dynamic pacing makes the script feel alive, as if the words themselves are part of the building tension. In addition, the dialogue serves a practical role by subtly guiding the audience's attention without feeling like overt exposition. Instead of bluntly explaining the mechanics of the animatronics or the pizzeria's history, the script drops hints through casual remarks, overheard announcements, and cryptic warnings. This approach respects the viewer's intelligence and adds layers of intrigue, encouraging active engagement with the story rather than passive watching. It makes the world-building feel organic and immersive, as if you're uncovering secrets alongside the characters. Overall, the dialogue and script in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 function as an essential backbone to the film's success. They shape the mood, reveal character, build suspense, and deliver thematic weight, all while maintaining a tone that's authentic, engaging, and at times surprisingly witty. The writing manages to balance tension and release, exposition and mystery, humor and horror, crafting conversations that resonate emotionally and linger in the mind long after the scene ends. Every line, pause, and exchange contributes to making the film not just a scary story but a fully realized, gripping experience where words hold as much power as shadows. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 dives deep into the survival horror genre with a unique blend of reverence for classic horror conventions and fresh, inventive twists that keep the experience engaging and unpredictable. At first glance, it might seem like it's ticking all the usual boxes. Dark, claustrophobic settings, creepy animatronics stalking the night, and plenty of jump scares designed to make your heart race. But what really makes the film stand out is how it plays with these familiar elements, sometimes following the expected paths and other times subverting them in clever ways that keep you on your toes and genuinely invested. The film leans into the traditional horror formula in a way that feels comfortable but never boring. It understands that suspense and tension come not just from loud noises or sudden scares but from building an atmosphere that slowly seeps into your bones. Instead of bombarding the audience with non-stop action or cheap thrills, it paces itself, using silence, shadows, and the ever-present mechanical hums of the animatronics to create a growing sense of dread. This approach respects the audience's ability to engage with subtle storytelling and rewards viewers who appreciate a slow burn. It's that classic horror tactic of less is more, allowing your imagination to fill in the blanks, which often ends up being scarier than anything explicitly shown. But the movie also doesn't shy away from shaking things up. It breathes new life into the haunted animatronics trope by turning these mechanical creatures into more than just scary monsters. The animatronics have distinct personalities, histories, and mysterious connections to the pizzeria's dark past, which adds layers to the horror. They're not mindless beasts but haunting presences that blur the line between machine and something more sinister. This gives the film a mythic quality, making the animatronics both terrifying and fascinating to watch. Their design and behavior tap into deep-seated fears of the uncanny, things that should be familiar and safe but are twisted into something threatening. This nuanced approach adds a fresh dimension to a genre that can easily fall into predictable monster scares. The film also juggles tone with impressive skill, balancing horror with moments of dry, understated humor. These lighter moments never feel out of place or distracting but instead serve to humanize the characters and provide emotional relief from the mounting tension. The protagonist's nervous quips or ironic observations show a coping mechanism in the face of overwhelming fear, making the character relatable and adding depth to their personality. This careful blending of humor and horror helps prevent the story from becoming one note, keeping the audience engaged and emotionally invested. Suspense is the backbone of the film's success in genre execution. The confined, claustrophobic setting of the pizzeria, combined with limited visibility and a sense of constant surveillance, turns the environment itself into a character. Every flicker of a camera feed or creak in the darkness could mean danger, and the film masterfully uses this to create a tense atmosphere where fear is always lurking just out of sight. The tension isn't just about what you see but what you don't see, the unknown lurking in every corner and hallway. This focus on psychological tension over brute force or gore makes the scares feel earned and amplifies the feeling of helplessness that defines survival horror. Action sequences, where they exist, aren't your typical fast-paced chases or fights but rather strategic moments of high-stakes decision-making. The protagonist must monitor security cameras, manage limited resources like power, and time their actions perfectly to avoid deadly encounters. This strategic element adds a layer of intellectual engagement to the horror, making the experience less about brute strength and more about survival instincts and quick thinking. It's a different kind of adrenaline rush that fits perfectly within the survival horror framework and elevates the genre execution beyond typical scare tactics. Drama in the film is understated but effective, focusing on isolation, fear, and the psychological toll of the night shift. The story doesn't just aim to scare but to explore how the protagonist copes with overwhelming paranoia and loneliness, grounding the supernatural elements in relatable human emotions. This adds emotional weight to the story and makes the horror feel more personal and impactful. The film uses drama not as an afterthought but as a core part of its narrative structure, deepening the audience's connection to the characters and the stakes involved. Sound design and visual storytelling also play crucial roles in reinforcing genre conventions while adding their own flair. The unsettling mechanical noises, the silence punctuated by sudden sounds, and the eerie glow of flickering lights all work together to build an immersive horror experience. The film's visual cues, shadows darting just out of view, unexpected reflections, and claustrophobic framing, help sustain a mood that's both unnerving and compelling. Rather than relying on constant visual bombardment, the film uses restraint to make each scary moment count. In summary, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of its genre. It knows when to lean into the familiar comforts of survival horror, and when to twist expectations to keep the audience guessing. It masterfully balances suspense, strategic tension, dark humor, and emotional depth to create a well-rounded experience that feels fresh and exciting while still honoring the roots of the genre. It's a film that respects its audience, delivering scares and thrills with intelligence and style, proving that horror can be both terrifying and thoughtfully crafted. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 isn't just a run-of-the-mill horror flick about creepy animatronics and jump scares. It quietly slips in some surprisingly sharp social and cultural commentary that gives the story extra layers and keeps you thinking long after the lights go out. Beneath the surface of this scary, suspenseful tale lies a reflection on a variety of contemporary issues, woven in so naturally that you might not catch it on the first watch. But once you do, it adds a whole new dimension to the film's impact. One of the most striking themes is the pervasive sense of surveillance and loss of privacy. The protagonist's entire job revolves around monitoring security cameras, trying to keep tabs on the sinister animatronics roaming the building. This endless watching and being watched taps into modern anxieties about surveillance culture. How we're constantly tracked by cameras, smartphones, and online data collectors. The film captures this claustrophobic feeling of being caught in an invisible web of observation where privacy is a luxury that slips further away every day. The claustrophobia isn't just physical. It's psychological, mirroring how people today might feel like they're always under a microscope, unable to escape the gaze of unseen watchers. It's a subtle but potent commentary on how technology intended to keep us safe can also make us feel trapped and vulnerable. Another rich layer in the film is the complex relationship society has with childhood nostalgia and innocence. The animatronics are designed as cheerful entertainers for kids, but in this story, they become nightmarish figures lurking in the shadows. This duality perfectly captures the uneasy way we often look back on the past. Places and things we remember fondly from childhood can also carry darker, sometimes forgotten memories and fears. The film plays on this tension beautifully, making the animatronics a symbol of innocence corrupted, a representation of how the safe spaces of youth can hide unsettling secrets. This theme resonates culturally because many people have a fascination with and fear of things that are too perfect or too familiar, especially when they're tied to formative years. The film taps into that collective unease, making us question how much of nostalgia is genuine comfort and how much might be masking something more sinister. The movie also quietly touches on the realities of low-wage, precarious labor through the protagonist's experience as a night security guard. The character is isolated, undervalued, and forced to perform a stressful job under dangerous conditions. An all-too-familiar scenario for many workers today. This portrayal highlights broader social concerns about job insecurity, exploitation, and the mental toll of monotonous, high-pressure roles that often go unrecognized. The film's atmosphere of exhaustion and creeping dread mirrors the burnout and anxiety many feel in the modern workforce, particularly in roles that require constant vigilance and little appreciation. It's a grim reminder of how survival horror can also be a metaphor for surviving day-to-day realities in a system that sometimes feels as unforgiving as the animatronics themselves. Technology's double-edged nature is another thread running through the film. The animatronics, meant to entertain and delight, become agents of terror. This flips the script on our usual trust in technology. It reflects cultural fears about how machines and automation, while designed to make life easier, can sometimes spiral out of control or cause harm. This theme taps into widespread anxieties about artificial intelligence, automation, and the unpredictability of rapid technological advances. The film doesn't need to spell it out explicitly. Instead, it uses the animatronics as a metaphor for the potential dangers lurking behind our dependence on machines. This adds a layer of contemporary relevance, making the horror feel tied to real-world issues beyond the screen. What's remarkable is how these social and cultural commentaries feel woven into the fabric of the story rather than tacked on or heavy-handed. The film trusts its audience to pick up on these ideas naturally, letting them simmer under the surface while you're drawn into the suspense and scares. It respects the viewer's intelligence by allowing the themes to emerge subtly through atmosphere, character experience, and story details instead of hammering them home with exposition. This approach makes the film richer and more rewarding for those who want to dig deeper without alienating viewers who are just there for a chilling thrill ride. Beyond the social issues, the film also explores the universal human experience of fear and anxiety in a way that connects culturally and personally. The protagonist's isolation and paranoia resonate as metaphors for the broader uncertainties many face in today's fast-changing, often unpredictable world. Whether it's fear of the unknown, mistrust of technology, or the pressure of constant observation, the movie captures these emotions vividly and relates them to the personal experience of survival. This emotional undercurrent adds depth to the horror, transforming it from simple scares into a more nuanced exploration of human vulnerability. In many ways, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 acts like a cultural mirror, reflecting modern concerns about privacy, nostalgia, labor, and technology, all wrapped in the guise of a haunted pizzeria. It manages to deliver thrills and chills while engaging with these complex topics in a way that feels organic and thought-provoking. This balance between entertainment and commentary makes the film stand out, showing that horror can be both fun and meaningful, giving viewers plenty to think about long after the final scene fades. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 knows exactly how to pull you in and keep you hooked, and not just with its creepy animatronics and jump scares. This film has a way of connecting emotionally with its audience that goes beyond simple fright. It invites you to feel the tension, the isolation, and even moments of unexpected humor, creating an experience that sticks with you long after the credits roll. From the very start, it grips you with a kind of nervous excitement, making you lean in closer to the screen, eyes darting around just like the protagonists, trying to anticipate what's lurking in the shadows. The emotional roller coaster the film takes you on is wild and unpredictable. One moment you're holding your breath in pure suspense as a shadow moves just beyond your view, and the next, you might find yourself chuckling at a dry, nervous joke or the protagonist's relatable panic. This blend of fear and humor makes the tension easier to bear but also more intense when the scares hit because the emotional contrast heightens the impact. You're not just watching a horror movie, you're living the experience alongside the character, feeling their dread, their frustration, and their fleeting moments of hope or relief. The film expertly crafts moments that provoke strong reactions. The jump scares are timed to jolt you out of your seat, but it's the creeping dread between those moments that really gets under your skin. That slow-building fear, combined with the eerie silence or the unsettling hum of machinery, makes every small noise or flicker of light feel like a potential threat. It's a masterclass in manipulating mood to keep your adrenaline spiking throughout the entire film. And when things get intense, you find yourself instinctively clutching at the edge of your seat or flinching, fully immersed in the nightmarish world unfolding before you. What's really clever about this film is how it keeps the audience engaged beyond just the scares. It's packed with little mysteries and unanswered questions that spark curiosity and discussion. Viewers are invited to piece together clues about the animatronics' origins, the dark history of the pizzeria, and the protagonist's fate. This layered storytelling encourages repeat viewings. Each time you catch a new detail or interpret a scene differently, which makes it a perfect film for fans who love to dive deep into lore and theory crafting. It turns watching into an active experience rather than a passive one. The characters' emotional journeys also help forge a connection with the audience. Even though the protagonist spends much of the film isolated and silent, their fear and determination come through clearly, making it easy to root for them. The vulnerability on display is palpable, and this emotional transparency invites empathy. You can't help but feel for the night guard, trapped in a terrifying situation with limited tools and support, which adds a layer of human drama to the horror and makes the scares hit harder. The film also excels in creating communal viewing moments. Whether it's a tense scene that has everyone in the room gasping or a sudden scare that causes shared laughter or screams, it turns watching into a social event. These shared emotional reactions deepen the engagement and make the film a memorable experience for groups of friends or families. It's the kind of movie that sparks conversation. People debating theories, sharing their favorite moments, or comparing who got the biggest scare. This ongoing dialogue helps keep the film alive in the minds of its audience, extending its impact far beyond the initial viewing. Even for viewers who might not usually gravitate toward horror, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 offers enough emotional range and narrative intrigue to hold their attention. The balance of tension, humor, mystery, and character moments creates an accessible entry point that makes the scares more effective and the story more compelling. It's a film that rewards emotional investment, making each scare feel earned and each quiet moment rich with meaning. Ultimately, the film's ability to make audiences feel something profound, whether it's terror, relief, curiosity, or camaraderie, shows how well it engages on an emotional level. It's not just about watching a scary story unfold. It's about becoming part of that story, feeling the pulse of the night and the creeping dread as if you were right there in the security office. This immersive emotional pull is what makes Five Nights at Freddy's 2 a standout in horror, inviting viewers back for more scares and more moments of connection every time. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 steps into the horror arena with a blend of familiar beats and fresh twists that make it stand out when compared to other films in the same genre, its own franchise, and even within the director's body of work. If you're someone who's seen a lot of haunted house or survival horror movies, you might initially think you know what to expect. Dark corridors, sudden scares, a lone protagonist battling unseen terrors. But this film knows those tropes well and plays with them in a way that feels both respectful and inventive, striking a balance that keeps you on your toes without feeling like you've watched the same story a dozen times before. When placed alongside other horror films that revolve around animatronics or haunted locations, think Child's Play or Annabelle. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 brings a unique flavor rooted in its video game origins. The film translates the tension and mechanics of the game into cinematic language, using surveillance cameras and confined spaces to build a claustrophobic atmosphere unlike many jump-scare-heavy horror flicks. This approach gives it a fresh perspective because rather than just relying on traditional haunted house setups, it creates a sense of helplessness and hyper-awareness that feels modern and rooted in technology, which is a clever update for today's audiences. Comparing it to the previous Five Nights at Freddy's film, this sequel amps up the complexity and stakes in ways that keep the franchise moving forward. It doesn't just recycle old scares or rehash the same story beats. Instead, it introduces new animatronics, deepens the lore, and tightens the narrative pacing. While it stays true to the core concept of surviving a terrifying night shift, the way it layers in backstory and character moments gives fans and newcomers alike more to chew on. It respects the source material while also evolving it, which is no small feat in a genre that often struggles with sequels feeling like retreads. Looking at the director's filmography, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 reflects a growth in style and storytelling. Where earlier films might have relied more heavily on straightforward scares or atmospheric tension, this one blends those elements with sharper character focus and a tighter narrative structure. The director's knack for balancing suspense with moments of levity and human emotion shines through here, creating a more nuanced horror experience. It's clear that lessons from past projects have been incorporated, resulting in a film that feels both polished and emotionally resonant without losing its edge. In terms of genre, this movie dances comfortably between horror and thriller with a dash of mystery. It avoids the pitfalls of falling into clichés by adding inventive scares and keeping the audience guessing. The animatronics aren't just scary props, they feel like characters themselves, each with distinct traits and unpredictable behaviors. This adds depth and keeps the scares from becoming stale. The film also weaves in elements of psychological horror, making you question what's real and what's imagined, which isn't always common in survival horror films that focus purely on external threats. It's also interesting to see how the film compares to other popular horror franchises that blend technology and terror, like The Ring or Pulse, where technology is both a tool and a source of danger. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 takes this idea but grounds it in a very physical, mechanical world, which gives it a tactile, gritty feel. The mechanical animatronics with their jerky movements and eerie expressions contrast with the digital surveillance, creating a unique blend of analog and digital horror that feels fresh. While some horror movies rely on gore or shock value, this film leans more into suspense and atmosphere, which makes its scares feel earned and more impactful. It respects the intelligence of its audience by not over-explaining or relying on jump scares alone. This approach is something that sets it apart in a crowded market where many horror films often sacrifice story and mood for cheap thrills. Overall, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 manages to carve out its own niche. It doesn't just slot neatly into existing horror categories but mixes genre elements with franchise lore and technological themes in a way that's both familiar and exciting. Whether you're a die-hard fan of the series or just a casual horror viewer, the film offers enough new ideas, sharper storytelling, and atmospheric tension to keep things feeling fresh and compelling. It's a clever blend of old and new, comfort and surprise, that shows the franchise and its creators know how to keep audiences coming back for more without losing what made the original special. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 slots itself right into the expanding universe of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, building on a rich and eerie mythology that has grown far beyond its humble beginnings as a video game. This isn't just a standalone scare fest. It's a piece of a much larger puzzle, connecting threads from previous entries while setting the stage for future twists and turns that hardcore fans will eagerly dissect. Understanding where it fits in the franchise tapestry adds a whole new layer of appreciation for the film and reveals just how carefully it contributes to the bigger story. The franchise itself started as a simple but deeply creepy survival horror game centered around animatronic mascots that come to life at night and terrorize the player. Over time, the lore expanded into a complex web of mysterious disappearances, haunted animatronics, and dark secrets buried beneath the surface of a seemingly innocent pizzeria chain. The film adaptation takes these elements and translates them into cinematic form, respecting the original atmosphere while adding depth through character development and narrative twists. It's not just retelling the same story but enriching it, fleshing out backstory and motivations that gamers had only glimpsed through cryptic clues and jump scares. Within this franchise context, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 serves as both a sequel and a prequel in some ways, adding layers to the timeline that fans love to piece together. It dives deeper into the origins of the animatronics and the sinister forces behind their creation, making the eerie machines not just scary but tragic and even sympathetic in a twisted way. This addition to the lore helps explain the why behind the haunting, offering glimpses into the human stories tangled with the mechanical horrors. It expands the mythology without losing that signature tension that defines the franchise. This film also enriches the broader narrative by introducing new characters and animatronics that become staples in the Five Nights universe. These additions don't feel like random throw-ins but rather carefully crafted pieces that connect to the overarching story arcs about vengeance, loss, and the blurred lines between technology and the supernatural. Fans will notice how events and details link back to other films and games, rewarding close attention and encouraging theories about what might come next. In terms of historical context, while this is not a traditional historical film, the way it constructs its timeline within the fictional universe is immersive and detailed. The film pays attention to the era it set in, with its retro aesthetic and dated technology reflecting the early 1980s and 1990s vibe of the original games. This nostalgic touch grounds the story in a believable setting, making the animatronics feel like relics from a bygone era. It's a smart way to blend horror with a sense of time and place, adding authenticity to the chilling atmosphere. The film also taps into broader cultural anxieties about technology, automation, and childhood innocence corrupted by industrial forces, making it resonate beyond just the horror genre or the franchise fans. These themes echo historical concerns about the rapid rise of machines and how technology can both entertain and alienate. The setting of a family pizzeria, once a symbol of fun and community, turning into a nightmare zone serves as a metaphor for the darker side of progress and commercialization. By connecting so deeply to the franchise's established mythology, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 doesn't just retread old ground but pushes the story forward in exciting and unexpected ways. It offers fans new pieces to the puzzle, while also being accessible enough for newcomers to get hooked on the mystery and thrills. The careful balance between honoring the source material and expanding it keeps the franchise alive and evolving, proving that there's still plenty of life left in these haunted animatronics. So whether you're a longtime fan who knows every hidden detail or someone just getting into the world of Freddy and Friends, This film enriches the Five Nights at Freddy's saga by deepening the lore, expanding the timeline, and enhancing the eerie, unsettling universe that has captivated audiences worldwide. It's not just another sequel. It's a key chapter in an ever-growing horror epic that continues to surprise and engage. When it comes to the budget of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the film's production definitely punches above its weight. It's not one of those massive Hollywood blockbusters with a jaw-dropping budget in the hundreds of millions, but the resources poured into this movie show clear, smart spending. The filmmakers managed to capture the eerie, claustrophobic atmosphere of the original games and translate it to the screen with impressive detail, making every creaky hallway and flickering security camera feel authentic and spine-chilling. The special effects, animatronic designs, and set pieces look polished and convincing, which tells you right away that the budget was focused where it mattered most, crafting the mood and scares rather than wasting cash on needless extravagance. Compared to some big-budget horror films that sometimes feel bloated with unnecessary CGI or fancy spectacle, this movie's budget strikes a nice balance, allowing for practical effects blended with digital enhancements that keep the animatronics terrifying but believable. The craftsmanship in the production design and technical work is a testament to making every dollar count, showing that horror doesn't always need massive budgets to be effective. It just needs the right vision and execution. Fans and critics alike noticed the care put into creating a world that feels lived in and convincingly unsettling, which is impressive given the modest financial scope. As for box office performance, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 rode a wave of fan anticipation and franchise popularity, which helped it achieve solid earnings. The built-in fan base of the game series translated well into theater turnout, with gamers eager to see their favorite creepy animatronics come alive on the big screen. This loyal audience base provided a strong foundation for box office success, though the film also managed to attract casual horror fans drawn by buzz and curiosity. The marketing campaign leaned heavily into the mystery and suspense, teasing scares without giving away too much, which built hype and kept people talking. However, the film's financial journey wasn't without bumps. Horror movies often have to work hard to sustain momentum after the initial release weekend, and this one was no exception. Some mixed reviews and debates about how well it captured the spirit of the games meant word of mouth was a bit uneven. But even so, the combination of franchise loyalty and smart marketing helped it avoid being a disappointment. It found its niche and performed respectably enough to encourage future sequels or spin-offs. Interestingly, the marketing itself was a clever blend of nostalgia and mystery. Trailers highlighted the creepiness of the animatronics and the tense survival gameplay feel, which worked perfectly to lure in both fans of the original games and those who love psychological horror. Social media buzz and fan theories helped keep the film in the conversation, and that grassroots excitement contributed to its box office results as much as traditional advertising did. In summary, the budget for Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was smartly managed, focusing on quality over quantity, which resulted in a film that feels immersive and authentic to its source material. Its box office performance reflected a solid success driven largely by franchise fans and effective marketing strategies, even if it didn't break records or dominate headlines. It's a reminder that with the right creative approach and understanding of your audience, a mid-budget horror film can make a strong impact both artistically and financially. So, you're ready to dive into the creepy world of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and want to know where to catch all the thrills and chills? Well, you're in luck because this film has been made available across multiple platforms to suit all kinds of viewers. Whether you're a theater lover who craves that big screen experience or someone who prefers the comfort of home with a cozy blanket and some popcorn, let's break down the best ways to experience this haunted pizzeria nightmare in all its glory. First up, the theatrical release. If you want the full immersive experience, where every jump scare hits harder and the eerie soundtrack fills the room, seeing Five Nights at Freddy's 2 on the big screen is the way to go. Movie theaters are designed to crank up the tension with their massive screens and booming sound systems, making those creepy animatronics seem like they could jump out of the shadows right at you. Plus, there's something special about watching a horror film surrounded by an audience. The collective gasps and nervous laughter add an extra layer of excitement that you just don't get watching alone at home. If you're the kind of person who loves to feel the atmosphere soak in, grabbing a ticket at your local cinema is definitely worth it. But let's say you can't make it to the theaters or you prefer a more relaxed setup. No worries. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 didn't keep fans waiting long to bring the scares into living rooms worldwide. It's available for streaming on popular OTT platforms, meaning you can press play whenever you want without leaving your couch. Streaming services have become a game changer for horror fans, allowing for re-watches and pause-to-scream moments that make the experience your own. The great thing about watching it at home is you can crank up the volume on your sound system or headphones to catch every creak and whisper that builds tension, and you control the lighting. Dim the room and let those shadows do their job. For those who like the flexibility of digital ownership, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is also up for digital rental or purchase through various online stores. This option is perfect if you want to watch it on different devices. Maybe a TV one night and your tablet the next, or if you're a collector who likes to keep a copy in your digital library for those late-night horror marathons. Owning the movie digitally also means you can binge any extras or behind-the-scenes features that sometimes come bundled with these editions, giving you more insight into how those terrifying animatronics were brought to life. Now, what about the best way to watch for the fullest impact? It really depends on your vibe. If you're chasing the adrenaline rush and want the scares to feel as real as possible, the theater's dark, echoing space and giant screen definitely take the experience up a notch. The subtle flickers of light and sound that haunt every corner become way more immersive in that environment. On the other hand, if you want to savor the film at your own pace, maybe pause to process the story or discuss theories with friends, streaming or digital rental offers unbeatable convenience and comfort. You can create your own ambience. Maybe dim the lights, get your favorite snacks, and settle in for a personalized horror night. One thing is certain though, whether on the big screen or streaming at home, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is crafted to keep you on edge, with every jump scare and mysterious clue waiting to be discovered. Just remember to check the availability on your preferred platforms in your region, as sometimes release dates vary and certain services might have exclusive rights. But rest assured, this haunted animatronic nightmare isn't hard to find if you're ready to face it. So go ahead, pick your ideal viewing spot, get ready for the chills, and prepare yourself for a night where animatronics are anything but friendly. Whether you're a die-hard fan or a newcomer curious about the franchise, watching Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is an experience best shared. Whether that's in a packed theater with strangers or in the cozy confines of your own home.